It's very nice to be here. We just want to say first and foremost how excited we are to be with all of you tonight. Both me and Phoebe actually participated in the Maine Student Film Video Conference for the past 2 years, and we absolutely loved it. So we're so ecstatic to be here tonight. The first things we're probably going to kind of go over with everyone is just kind of introduce kind of who we are and how we got started in the craft we're currently doing now, to hopefully kind of inspire you as well.
Sorry, before we get going, actually, I'm really sorry. Just for the people watching at home, if you have a question at any time throughout the workshop, feel free to either click the raise your hand button or just type it into the chat, and we'll get to you when it's an appropriate time to do that. Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
So the first thing we are going to look with is, well, thank you for coming here. So like we said earlier, we are independent artists, filmmakers, and musicians. We are both sisters, twin sisters actually, and we were homeschooled for the majority of our life, and we feel that art has always been a part of us growing up, and it gave us a lot of opportunities to be working all the time together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the projects that we have done in the past was really inspired by our imagination, and we just had that freedom to express ourselves through imagination and create what we had thought in our heads on paper.
Yeah, so we were actually 2020 graduates of Foster Technical Education Center down in Farmington, and that gave us a lot of opportunity after we did the Maine Student Film Video Conference. They gave us more opportunities to kind of work on our skills and gain more knowledge of the technical side of film and animation. But before all that, we were basically just started by just creating things. So that kind of helped and added on things. If you want, you can see our the Waterville Creates on the Road series video showing our process if you want to get into more of that. So we are kind of going to talk about also how we got started in film, because we really knew nothing about it. We never grew up watching any movies or any animated things at all. We never really grew up in that culture. But when we were younger, we were probably about 13 or so, we had heard about the Maine Student Film and Video Festival years before we ended up trying to create our own sorts of films at home. We ended up wanting to kind of give that a go one year, and we ended up planning out a storyboard and stuff because we had this idea to go out and just shoot some things in our yard. With no equipment or any sort of camera, we filmed it on a phone, and that ended up being the film Searching for Spring, which ended up winning the Maine Student Film Video Festival, which we never thought would happen.
Yeah, it was quite a talk actually. We had no idea. In case you haven't seen Searching for Spring, it is about two elves who are finding spring, and they end up like seeing this, well, the white elf over there, which you can see is the winter elf, and C hears a flute, which is the calling of spring, and it's just kind of silent throughout that, and it's mostly a musical, like I guess it's kind of a music video almost.
Yeah, so we kind of made all that on our own, and the reason we like to kind of share with this, that this is how we got started, is that using limitations as a way to spark creativity really kind of favored us in the long run. And the same kind of goes about with the next film we did for the year after that, 2019, we ended up making the film Ocean Child, which yet again, we knew nothing about animation, stop motion. but we knew that this was the medium that this story had to be told in, which is a little different than how Searching for Spring is, where we made the music after, but we wrote the song and we said, this has to be told through artwork. And that, even though we knew nothing about the medium stop motion, we just went for it, and we knew that it was created with many photographs, and we ended up doing that. So yeah, the reason we like to share all this is we're still learning too, and technically we are somewhat self-taught in stop motion animation, and you do not need any sort of equipment in order to make what you want.
I think definitely I think if you really want to like try something, you have to like take action and be willing to make mistakes and learn along the way. And I think that really helped us move forward into making these projects become reality. It starts with the idea and inside your head, and then taking that action to create it.
Yeah. So now as we've talked a little bit about where we've come from and how we first got started into it, we're going to try to think on how exactly can you do this too? How exactly can you come up with an idea of a story and bring the animation? The first thing that we like to talk about is what exactly is stop motion animation? So stop motion animation is a genre of animation used by taking thousands of photographs to create the illusion of movement. And we both agree that that's a very special type of animation because you are capturing it to be two-dimensional, yet everything seen on screen we can physically touch, we all can make by hand, we can physically hold the things that we are making.
Yeah.
So that's why we think it's very special. And as you can see in this photo here, we use the stop motion called paper cutout animation, a lot of people call it, because it is made with two-dimensional paper objects.
Yeah.
And we have just like this downward facing setup in order to capture our visuals. So now as we've kind of explained what stop motion animation is, we can kind of go about how do you start making one of your very own. And I think the first thing that starts off when creating anything, the first thing that we have to start with is an idea. And in order to take that idea and turn it into a physical thing that we can create, we need to start with something called storyboarding. And storyboarding is extremely important in stop motion animation, especially because we are constantly referring to storyboarding. So storyboarding is technically, it's like making a comic book-like script with just the general images of the scenes of the shots that we are going to use in the films that we're making. This isn't always necessary for just trying out stop motion, but if we actually want to make a film, we are always referring to this because it helps us as an editing tool. It saves us time because animation is a very long process.
It keeps us organized.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stop sharing this for a minute and I'm gonna show you what an example of a storyboard can be. So here's our physical ones. They are, as you can see, it is kind of like a comic book script. And it's kind of just giving us the general shots of the story that we want to tell, along with any notes that are
Important to that scene.
yes, important to the story or tell us where we are. And like I said, you don't always have to do these in every sort of project you're creating because it may not always be necessary. But in our case, we always like to do so. So now as we've kind of gone over this, we are going to show you This is actually how we will set up the background. So after we've come up with our story and our any of our storyboarding plans, so we get the gist of what we want to make, we always end up making the backdrops for our projects. And a lot of the backdrops that we make, they are just paper with any sort of paint put on over them. We find that this is very simple to do, and it almost always looks nice. And we really like using really bright colors in our work because it really makes it very visually pleasing. So yeah, so we usually make a bunch of these if we want to animate our objects on them. And we end up making any sort of little cutout pieces if we want to make things move on our backdrops. And these can range literally from anything you want to create. And we make all of our work out of paper, as you can see here. And it may look difficult to do because some of these pieces are very difficult to do, but you do not need to go all out with everything. A lot of our things are very simple shapes. It can really be anything you want it to be. So now as we've kind of talked about that, we will kind of go over, I know most of you don't have your art kits yet, but we thought it would be nice to kind of just show you a little bit of what you're getting in it, because it has everything that you need to get started on your stop motion work. The first thing that's really on here is really, we'll just get a bunch of this really nice white paper. These are very good for the backdrops that I just showed you. And you can cut out shapes with these to move with, along with a lot of nice paper like this that are just small, thick cutout paper that's already painted. We use this type of paper a lot in the stuff we do because it's a nice heavy weight, so it's nice to move around and all that. Along with some instructions that you can use to as a guide for what you want to create, and it also kind of goes over a way to shoot your scene with a mobile device, which we will be showing you how to do today. We usually shoot on a normal Canon camera overhead, but this is totally doable on a mobile device. So we're going to show you how to do that. Right. So this is kind of an example right here of a mobile device stand. This is kind of similar to the one that the art kit instructions talks about, which is really just like 2 boxes with some dowels across taped on it, and then 2 clips holding your device in place. We will point out that it is very nice to have some sort of lighting coming underneath the boxes that are holding your device on, because they can create some shadows. But yeah, regardless, it will look nice.
You can like use like a flashlight or any sort of
Nice sort of flashlight. Now the scene that we're probably going to be creating today, we chose to do an underwater scene. But like we said earlier, anything is possible with stop motion animation. Yeah. So if you want to create something different, you go ahead and create that. I just wanted to show you an example of some simple shapes that you can cut out using the materials in your art kit. Of course, you can go very more simpler than these, but everyone has their own different style and their unique way of doing things. So,
hey, Isabelle and Phoebe, this is Dave. Could I just jump in with a question?
Yes, sir.
Could you show a side view of that stand?
Oh, okay. So we don't have a side view, but we can do this.
Yeah, if you could do that. Oh, that's great. And could you just explain why a stand is helpful?
Yeah.
well, a stand is helpful because it keeps your camera stationary. Because especially, it's kind of like a tripod. So if you're filming, or let's say taking videos and photos, for instance, it's important to have a stand because it keeps your camera in place. So when you take your photos, they don't move around. So that's why it's important to keep it stationary. Sorry about that.
Thanks a lot.
All right. So I'm gonna let Phoebe go over kind of the stop motion app that we have found that we think works very well for capturing the images of your stop motion movie. This is an app called Stop Motion Studio, which is actually a really, really good mobile device app that works very well.
Yeah. Now, so I'm gonna go right in here. And now when you go in here, this is where all your files are saved in here. And you can create a new movie by pressing here. And here's your screen right here. So I'm gonna add in some paper objects. And so now to animate, you're going to go to the camera button in the upper right corner. And you'll see it's kind of just like your regular photo app that you have on your phone. But the only real difference inside this app, which is very important, is the onion skinning on the left corner here. That is important because once you move your frame, you're going to see where you previously moved your object. And that's very important so that if you do mess up, you can eventually go back. So if we're going to make an animation right here with these two fists. And to do that, I'm going to press the button here. And you see I took my photo. Now, we usually animate with these. These are an X-Acto knife. And I know they seem kind of sharp, but they actually aren't. And they don't damage your object really at all.
Or any sort of like stick might be easier. You can use your hands too, but personally what we've found is using something other than your hands can make it easier to move your object.
I don't know if you can see that onion skin now, but you can previously see what actions you have created. And I'm just going to keep taking photos. And what's cool about this app is that you can change your frame rate whenever. To make Ocean Child, we used a 24 frames per second, which is usually what animators usually use as a frame rate. But I would recommend, it's totally fine to use 15 frames per second, even maybe 10 frames. But right now I'm in 15 frames per second.
I think we got a really nice question up here from Ezra. Is how do you make photos into film? And actually this is exactly what Phoebe is doing here. What stop motion is, we're just taking lots and lots of photos and then we will speed them up together so it looks like it is a moving picture. So we'll show you in a little bit so you can see what we're talking about. Yeah, very good question.
And as you probably noticed that stop motion takes a long time because you're constantly moving these parts ever so slightly, and that's going to make your photo reel into a movie.
Okay, we also got another really good question, which is, how do you add a soundtrack or dialogue into your footage? What we have done for our past few films was we record our music or dialogue separately, and then We will edit both our footage and our soundtrack together later in post-production. I think you probably actually can add audio into this.
Yes, you can.
I don't think we figured that out yet. But you know, if you do a little digging in, it's pretty easy to use. I'm pretty sure you can do that too. Or if you have some sort of basic editing program on like your laptop or your phone, like iMovie or Windows Media Player, you can definitely add a soundtrack in through that too.
So now I'm just going to play what I have taken. And now to go see the full thing, you can actually delete frames. Let's say I wanted to delete a frame. You double click and you'll have all these options that you can select. And I'm just going to hit delete. And like usually you can, after a while when you're doing this process so long, you tend to get a finger inside a spot or make a mistake, and that's gonna happen at some point. So, but anyway, I'm gonna play what we have. And yeah, and a way to export, if let's say, okay, I love this movie and I want to save it, you're gonna go out and you're gonna click select on the upper right. And you're going to select the movie that you created. And then you're gonna go up to files and export movie. Now there's multiple ways that you can export, but I'm going to export it straight to my phone. And I'm just gonna do save video. And then when I go to my photos and my regular photo app, it will play as though it was a movie, like a film that you had taken a video of. So it's kind of cool.
There we go. We got another question from Elizabeth. Did you use this app to make your big movies? We actually did not. We actually just recently found this app. We're very impressed with it. But for the first movie we made, we actually didn't use any kind of stop motion software. We used we just took a bunch of pictures and then edited them all together in a program called Premiere Pro, which I do not recommend doing because it was very hard and not worth it. But for our latest film that we are coming out with shortly at some point, we actually use a software designed for stop motion called Dragon Frame, which is a very, very wonderful software that's very easy to use. Although it can be expensive, although there is a free trial that you can get online. They're wonderful people over there. So, and we got another question from Aiden. I have a GoPro. Is this usable for this? You know, I don't know. You could try it. I think as long as it takes images and you're able to take an SD card out of your GoPro or download them onto another computer, I think, yes, I think it will work. But I can't confirm it. And we also got Lisa, excellent demonstration. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so that's kind of a run through on the app itself. We kind of recommend just experimenting with it. Like we kind of said, it really doesn't need to be so complicated. Honestly, how we kind of taught ourselves stop motion was just by trial and error.
Yeah.
So just have fun with it and create something that you really enjoy, and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And I think this is a great app for just starting out. And if you really find it helpful, you can always, I'm assuming there's probably tons of other programs that you can use besides Dragon Frame. that will do the job just as good. But yeah, I would definitely start out with this app if you have it downloaded.
So now as we've kind of gone through this, and we've talked about how to basically create a movie, if you wanted to, it can take a long time to make even a 30-second film. But you can change the frame rate if you want it to be a lot longer. So I think right now it is on 15 frames per second. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with frames per second, but we use a lot of frames per second because it's technically telling us how fast the images are going by to create the illusion of this movie.
Yeah. Now inside video, 60 frames per second is usually the natural speed. But in animation, they usually go for 24, which looks just as natural. Of course, 24 frames is a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people do it for 10 frames per second, which is a lot quicker. I guess it depends how smooth you want it to run too. Like, let's say if you wanted 10 frames, it is going to look a lot slower.
And it also kind of depends on the style that you're going for. Some people really like that stop motion feel because it really makes it look like it was taken with lots of photographs. And some people prefer it being really smooth and very almost you can't even tell that it was taken by taking lots of photographs. So it's really all your preference. Okay, we got another nice question from Elizabeth, which is, what's your recommended frame per second? The ones that we've kind of done for in the past for our films have been 24 frames a second. It can be a lot longer to do though, so I think it depends on how much time you have. If not though, I would recommend even 15 frames per second is probably great because it still gives you a nice movement, but it's not as long a process to do.
Yeah. I think 24 is usually, I kind of found in the past was kind of, even though it's kind of slower and it takes a lot of time, it does run quite smoother. Yeah, I guess because it's more video-like.
Yeah. But once again, it's all in your
It
preference.
really depends on you.
And we just once again, we recommend you all just to experiment with things and have fun with it and see what styles you can come up with. Maybe you can come up with something that is better than what we have come up with. It's all on you. We got some good questions here, which is, how long should your animation be? Is there any limitations? Well, we got some good news for you. There is no limitations. It can be as long as you want it to be. It's your movie that you're making, so it really depends on your preferences and how long you want to work on it for. We got another question, which is, will everything about this contest be explained, like the time and place? I think I lost the rest of that.
I'll just jump in here. Oh, Dave, you want to take it?
I'll be glad to jump in on that. We will tell you all the details at the end of this session, just before 8 o'clock.
Awesome. Hey. Okay, so now as we've kind of gone through that, we might show a little more about the paper cutouts if any of you are interested in that. So like I was said earlier, this is kind of what I've come up with personally as a fun and easy subject to animate, but there are once again endless possibilities. It is your creation and you can do anything you want to create.
Yeah.
It can be really complex or it can be really simple. It's all up to you.
It's also kind of cool because if you are doing paper cutout animation, you can build up your background with paper too, which is kind of cool because it almost gives a 3D effect. And it's kind of fun because then you can recycle backgrounds and create new scenes just by having extra pieces of paper to put on your background.
Yeah, and as you can see, we did a lot of this for our film, The Ocean Child, because it really helps to just keep reusing your old material. Like we still reuse all of this stuff for current stuff we're making because they hold up and you always have them, which is really nice. We got a question that says, how long do your videos / movies usually take to make?
Hours.
It takes a lot of work, actually. So, although we usually, we're not the best with our time management when it comes to making something new. So we actually usually complete a fully done 4-minute animation in less than 2 months, which is very quick.
I think the reason why we usually make it is because we start animating from like 8 in the morning to 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
At least that's how long it took for the time of
Yes.
Ocean Child.
Yeah, and I recommend when you're animating to have like a space. I don't know, at least I have a space working on our current one, and I would be there till like 4 in the morning, just working on animating tiny little things.
I would not recommend doing that.
No, I don't recommend doing that either. I recommend having fun with it and spacing your time out with it because it is a long process. We got another question that says, how do you make the joints for your characters so they can move?
Oh.
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. So that's actually a technique that I kind of came up with because these puppets are actually really fun to move, these non-jointed ones, and I still consider them puppets. However, if you do want to have like a moving character, let me get them out. I have them all in here. If you want like a character to move, like I have this seal is able to move. I have hooked them with just little pieces of wire that goes through the back. And they're actually just like earring hook wire that you can get like at the store somewhere. And I was able to bring them through the paper and then bend them over so they can joint. Once again, I was working with what I had. This is what I came up with. It can be kind of hard to do because it can rip the paper, but if you want to give it a go, I totally recommend going for it. I do recommend though to start your animation process with just simple non-jointed things because these can be very hard to move because there's so much going on. But thank you for asking that question. That was very nice. Can you show us one of your final animations? Yes, I don't think we can show it on Zoom because of the quality on here isn't that great. But if you want after this Zoom call, we have all of our stuff on YouTube and Vimeo at Sagittarius Rising. So if you want to look at our animation film Ocean Child, it's on there and it kind of can give you a gist of what we make. And hi, is it harder to do more realistic stop motion?
You know, when I was animating the Ocean Child girl puppet, see, it was kind of complicated, but once you start getting in the rhythm of it, it starts to be easy because you almost become the puppet, if that makes sense. Yeah, like, well, I guess like having jointed puppets are considered more realistic because you get more realistic movement. And yeah, I can see this. But yeah, I would say it is more harder to do realistic movement at times. But just because the movement is realistic, it doesn't mean the puppet has to be realistic too.
I think a lot of maybe more realistic movement might be better to get with three-dimensional objects too. Just because it gives you more space to hang on to the object.
And I definitely think the joints really help in making her move realistically. Yeah, I guess it's just like finding your center of gravity and like kind of like knowing where to, like, I guess kind of like knowing how to animate like with gravity. So maybe realistic movements by like how you would walk.
I think also a good thing maybe if you want to get better at realistic movement is just observing real life things.
Yep.
And really observing how things move. How do you walk? How do you pick up something? How does the light affect this thing when it's moving? I think that's just a good thing to kind of keep in mind at all times. Because it can help you when you're animating, when you really know how it's going to move. Because you have complete control on how it's going to.
Yeah.
So we have another great question, which I'm excited to answer is there a different stand I should use when using 3D objects? I'm assuming you mean a stand for the camera. Because if that's what you mean, I think just using like a little tripod mount, or maybe even you could place your mobile device on like a stack of books so it's facing forward to get your three-dimensional shots. Then yes, I would use that. Or if you mean a three-dimensional stand for the objects you're moving, usually people use that if you have a very complex character that you want to move. Like, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Leica Studios and how they animate their objects and their characters. They use a nice rigging setup, so they're able to move them easier. But we don't have any of that. So we got another question is, I see nail-like things in the puppet to move it. What are those and where can I get them? Okay, thank you for asking that. So the nail-like things are actually, I think we can zoom in a little bit, yeah. They are actually little pieces of wire with like a flat edge on them because they are actually earring hook wires.
Yeah.
And I got these, I think I just had them in my jewelry box.
You can get them at Walmart.
You can get them wherever they sell jewelry supplies, or even gardening wire. If you have like that wreath making wire, that works very well. And you just bend the edges over it so it can make it joint like that. They actually also make these little metal things that are meant to do this joint work. They're like, I don't know what they're called, but they're actually similar to one of these kind of hooks that folds down and makes a hinge. So I don't remember what they're called, but there are pre-made things like that too. But this is just what I've come up with. So yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, these are the things that we've come up with, these kind of puppets. And we think it's really fun working with all these layers like this because you can make your scene a lot more detailed, or it creates a lot of depth into it because it is a two-dimensional kind of scene once it's all captured.
Yeah, and the fun part about animation is that you can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't have to be like natural or realistic. It could be totally unique and different. You can like play with colors and different patterns. It's kind of definitely an artwork if you think about it. It's like making a painting that is moving. So that's what's really cool about animation. And that's kind of why we like it, because we're artists and we always have been visual artists. And it's kind of helped us take our artwork and see what it would look like moving.
Let's see, we had a good question here, which is, I like the style you make the rocks. How do you decide what each prop will look like? So that's a really good question. Thank you for asking that. The props that we usually make are just like the paper overlays like this, and we paint them to look more three-dimensional. So this is kind of a bigger piece of the rocks here. I don't think we really decide how it's going to look. We, both me and Phoebe both create the backgrounds and the props, and we have different art styles actually. But we just kind of make them work together. It really kind of depends on what kind of movie we want to make. If we want to make something that has like a fairy tale like feel to it, we will go with more of a colorful.
Yeah. And I guess to try out colors and different shapes, or see what we would like the scenery to look like, we would create concept art, which is kind of like storyboarding, but you're making a more detailed image of what you want to create in the scene.
And some of our props are actually more three-dimensional. Like these are the pieces that we used for our recent animation film, which they're actually cut out pieces of cardboard. And they gave a really cool effect when we used them in our animation, because they created this shadow-like effect on the paper. So yeah, so the props kind of all just kind of, they all just kind of come in the moment if you know that we need. And we are always touching them up. We are always repainting stuff. We're always adding things over them. So the props are really important to us in our animation work.
And they kind of serve almost very similar to the puppets, what we call them. Even though they're not jointed, they still are usually moving and are in the scene. So.
And some of our puppets, I still call them puppets even though they're not technically puppets, but we use these just cut out flat pieces of paper to create something that's going to transform into something else. This is also a hard technique to do, at least I haven't found an easier way to do it yet, but we just can move all these little things to make it look like they're getting bigger. And you kind of can create a shape with all of these little pieces together and move them all separately when we take our photos to make it look like something else. So that's another cool thing we can do with props. Very nice. So yeah, so these are kind of just some things that we've come up with and all that. If you want to see, we usually make our props really tiny, but it can also be a lot easier to work with something on a bigger scale because you've got a lot more room to work with.
Yeah.
So I recommend, especially if you're starting out or you're somewhat new to this style, I recommend making your objects a lot bigger than you think they should be. Here's a comparison. Like this fish is very tiny. I recommend maybe starting with something like that.
I mean, because then you can put more detail
Yeah.
into it and focus more on your animation.
Yeah.
And it's just easier all around.
Mm-hmm. So, very nice. Here's an example of us being way too tiny. This is supposed to be a small. This is supposed to be a small version of this because we were gonna do a shot where she was in front of the moon and we didn't want to make a big puppet to use it. So we made a really tiny moon. It's so hard to move. We got a question here that says, why do you use an X-Acto knife instead of just moving stuff with your hands? That's a good question too, because we do use our hands a lot when we move this stuff. I've actually recently started using an X-Acto knife to move stuff this spring. I don't know, because I've just found it easier because it allows me to just get enough grip to move the artwork without totally moving it like way too far. So it can allow me to get just enough grip to move it around.
Yeah, I find it's very good for very extreme subtle movement.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's what I find it's very good for.
And it was very helpful when moving things, like let's say we got a lot of layered textures that I want to move around. It's a lot easier for me to move around with something like this, because if I move it with my hands, it can all move everything all over the place. Sorry.
Yes.
Whoop, our camera. Whoop, there we go. Yeah, so thanks for asking that question. I know it's a little weird because it's so sharp. Yeah, there's probably other things that work better that are probably a little safer.
Maybe like a pencil or something.
A pencil or like maybe like a dowel or something. Yeah, it's probably better than that. Where did you get that tool? You know, where did I get it? I think I don't know exactly where I got it, but I know they sell them at they sell these at like hardware stores, or you can get them at craft stores and stuff, and appliance stores. This is just something that I had kicking around my house. So I was like, hey, this works pretty good, so I'm just gonna use that. So that's just what works for me. If you don't want to use something like this, I totally don't blame you. So once again, just come up with things that work well for you. What works for me may not work well for you. And this is just kind of our style of making animation. So if you guys come up with anything that you prefer over this is just kind of how we've come up with how we do things. But we are by all means no pros.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of cool to incorporate multiple types of stop motion or just animation in general. I always find that interesting when people take the extra knots of creativity to mix their media.
Yeah, so very nice. If there's any other questions on that, I think we're good.
I'll take the opportunity, since we only have a few minutes left, to ask a question. I know we touched a little bit on sound at the beginning, but do you have any tips and tricks for people who want to create an animation that kind of goes to the beat of a song? You know, you compose all of the music that goes along with your films, but if someone wants to use a piece of free audio, how would you recommend that they calibrate their movements as they take still images to make this video?
I kind of recommend listening to what you're going to use first. And kind of while you're animating it, just kind of have that in the back of your mind, so you kind of know, oh, okay, I kind of know what's already going to be expected.
And I think kind of storyboarding to the music is very helpful, at least in my opinion, so that while you're animating, you know where you're going to be. Like it could be to let's say, okay, I want my rhythm to be in tune with the visuals. Yeah, so that's very important to, especially a good way for storyboarding.
Or
you can do it with lyrics too.
Yeah. So
That's
like with the
helpful.
Ocean Child storyboards, we wrote in each lyric to each shot. So we knew, okay, this lyric comes on here with this imagery. So we know exactly where it's going to happen. Yeah, but of course there's always things that will end up changing things at some point too.
No, that's a super helpful tip, especially with the storyboarding and writing the lyrics that you want to sync the video with those lyrics. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I also noticed that your lighting is really consistent. So you're keeping one light going all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yes. We actually had some trouble when we first started because there's certain lights that can create kind of a subtle flicker to it that make it look like the light is changing, even though it's not. So the lights we're using now, I think, are like an LED that actually work very well. So we recommend using those and just kind of have it just kind of position it in a spot and just leave it there. Yeah.
Are there any last questions out there from anyone before we wrap up with the challenge? I guess not. There were quite a few questions all through. Yeah, we really want to thank you, Isabelle and Phoebe. This was really a great introduction to stop motion storytelling. I think there's a lot of students with plenty of ideas out there from getting a chance to glimpse at your work.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to show you what we do. And we look forward to seeing anything that you guys come up with.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend not to be discouraged about limitations, as being limited with your materials or tech equipment or whatever, that's kind of the thing that sparks creativity. I mean, at least that's how we came across it.
Yeah.
Well, Isabelle and Phoebe, we would like you to help judge the entries in this challenge. So we'll be in touch with you, but let's tell everyone what the challenge is. Your challenge, if you've seen some of the work by Isabelle and Phoebe, you'll know that it's all based on stories. And so your challenge to take part in is to produce a stop motion animation that tells a story, 30 seconds long. All right, so not too long, just a half a minute. And you have until January 12th, Tuesday, January 12th, to submit your entry. The prize is a camera and a mini tripod so that you can create your own stop motion. And we'll include a few other things that'll help you out to get going. And there you go. We're really excited to see what you come up with.
Yay. Can't wait for that. Awesome.
So just as we're wrapping up, I just want to, in the chat, I just posted the link and we'll follow up with all of these details in an email to everyone afterwards. But the link is mainstudentfilm.org/share. So that's where you go to upload your projects at the end of every workshop. It's the same link every time. Our next workshop is going to be January 14 at 7 p.m. Brian Bichard, who taught the lighting workshop last month, will be back to teach a little bit about moving the camera and creative ways of doing that. So he's awesome. It's going to be a great workshop. Can't wait to see you all back here. I just want to throw a quick plug in for Serena, who from Common Street Arts and Waterville Creates, who brought some Slice people with us tonight to give a quick preview of the next Slice workshop. So Serena, I'm going to turn your microphone on if that's okay.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Isabelle and Phoebe, that was so awesome. You're just like, you're such natural teachers. So impressed. So yeah, I just thought I'd give a little plug. We have, actually, it's also January 14th, but it's an afternoon. Our next Slice is called Illustration and Character Creation. And it's with the children's book illustrator, Russ Cox. And what he does is graphic novels and children's books. And he's going to talk about how to create a character and some of the things you can do to challenge yourself around creating a character, like taking your character, what do they wear, but also like flipping your character on its head, all kinds of really fun stuff. And he'll show you some really easy techniques of drawing. So I'm going to put in the chat a link to that. Again, it's a free program. This one is in the afternoon at 1 o'clock. And I think it's awesome. Russ is so fun to follow along with. And you can even check out, I'll put up his website too in the chat because it is really awesome. So so that's free, and that's January 14th at 1 o'clock. And again, it's perfect for people who, you know, not only just love to draw, but also just are looking at stories and character creation.
Awesome. Thanks, Serena. And for everyone, you know, again, we're excited to have this kind of be a mashup between the Maine Student Film and Video or Maine Student Film Crew and Slice. If you're from Slice and you'd like to continue experiencing these awesome workshops that we're offering, please sign up at mainstudentfilm.org and you'll be on our list. If you're within grade 7 to 12, I know there's a couple of adults in here, so you probably don't qualify, but just for students. But anyway, at the end of all of this, Dave, unless I'm missing something, I just want to say thank you so much, Phoebe and Isabelle, for your time, your awesome artistic just expertise and perspective, and for teaching all of us about stop motion animation. This has been awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
Really
you.
incredible. Wonderful job. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have done it.
Okay, well, we hope to see all of you again January 14. Happy holidays, safe holidays, be well, and we'll see you next year.
Stay well, create some cool projects.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.